Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not
We will
relevant.
bring the jury.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict, and boy do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy
They
there.
got the wrong guy. The dog was biting him.
He roughing him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
9 out of 10 judges prefer watching the Recovery Addict live stream in their courtroom.
The fireworks are not done.
Now we're doing commentary on the case. Dati mihi Anglican po, it's
Literally not true.
I didn't ask you to interrupt me.
Is that correct?
Oh, for Trump's sake.
All right, welcome back to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict. As we get everything ready here for the afternoon to begin, we are going to be returning to court here in just a second as the judge will be bringing everybody to order, and hopefully we can find some order in the questions and answers that the state chooses to present the last bit of their case with today, as we expect them to rest after. Well, we've got one more witness to finish up, cross-examination for her, maybe some redirect, and then a final witness. And the state's going to say, we rest. So we expect all that to happen today. We're looking forward to it. How's your lunch, everybody? Hope it was great. Mine was fantastic. I had salad. So I get like a star, don't I, when I eat salads? Of all the yummy food that I could, okay, I had a salad and a Pop-Tart. I had 2 salads and 2 Pop-Tarts. That's final answer. That's what I had for lunch. I'm guessing the Pop-Tart probably negated any benefit that having the salad gave me. But yeah, it is what it is. All right, let's see. Let me manually type in what I need on this really quickly. For some reason, my Apple TV defaulted to French mode. You know how hard it is to spell things with the French alphabet? They have all these extra letters in there. All right. There we go. All right. Okay. Where were we? Took a while for the Pop-Tart truth to come out. It was Pop-Tart. I was good. I was good until I was putting everything away. I was putting the salad dressing and the cheese, because I used some cheddar and some mozzarella cheese in my salad, and the lettuce and the dressing and everything. I was putting everything away because I'm not a complete Neanderthal. I do clean up after myself when I make food most of the time. And it was frosted. Of course it was frosted. It was very frosted. Strawberry, by the way, in case you're wondering. I was putting everything away, and as I turned, I saw the pantry. And Mrs. R.A. is amazing. She keeps the pantry fairly well stocked with options, as I like to consider them. Options. And I thought, I did really well. I had a salad. It was good, but, it was a salad. It doesn't leave you with that feeling like I just ate a Thanksgiving dinner, or I just had, steak and potatoes or something like that. So I was left feeling like I just ate a salad. And as I turn, I see 3 boxes of Pop-Tarts, boom, in the pantry, the big boxes like you get from Sam's Club.
Ready for the jury?
Yes, Judge, we're ready.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I saw, we're going to pause this for just a second. I saw the 3 boxes of Pop-Tarts, and I thought, I've been good. I deserve it. This one I've earned.
Bring the jury.
And then next thing you know, I ate both of them, and here we are. Yes, that's a lot. CAOOOAAAU and I. I'm not sure what all those little things are. What flavor do you have? It was strawberry frosted, and I did have both of them. Oh, you guys can't see a dang thing, can you? It'd help if I show you that. I'm sorry, I got cut up. I can see everything just fine from my vantage point. I forgot you guys can't. All right. Welcome to the afternoon. Greener says, I don't work for free. Greeners, congratulations. You're first in chat today. The internet's all yours. Everything IP related is your responsibility.
All
There's
right.
your accolades.
Cross-examination.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, can we publish this to the attorneys?
We're done with
All I
direct.
see is a white screen. Is it on your laptop? or-
Yes.
We're going straight to cross.
Hold on a minute, we just have to switch it over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just to the witness and the attorneys?
The witness and the attorneys, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
That's good. That's good.
And
The
this-
morning
for the
was
record,
painful.
What exhibit number is this?
Judge, if we
It's not,
could,
oh, you don't have, it's not in evidence yet? Okay.
it's not in evidence.
All right, thank you.
I can identify it, however.
Sure, okay.
Your Honor, if we could identify this as defense exhibit number 80.
80?
80.
Okay. We'll identify
I think
it.
that's a little out of line, but it's.
That's fine.
Okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Groff. I'm John Carroll. I represent Mr. Banfield in this case.
Good
If there are any
afternoon.
questions that I ask you and you don't understand them, please ask for me to repeat them.
Sure.
Okay. Ma'am, can you see the first slide there at your station?
Excuse me?
Did you see something
Excuse
on the
me?
screen?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And what, have you seen that before?
Yes.
Okay. What were you, in terms of your ability to see that, was that in pictures?
This object or
Yes.
this one image or what's contained in the image?
This object and this image?
The object I saw in multiple images, including the body cams, videos, and I see it in this still image.
Okay. And you recognize that?
Yes.
Now, did you work with Detective Leach from the Fairfax County Police on this case?
I worked with him in the sense that I received, I believe, reports that he wrote, documentation of what type of analysis was done or submitted various items for, and I had a conversation about a particular testing that he did.
Okay. And the particular testing, was that the testing that we just talked about in your cross-examination with the, what you said was a linear drip stain on the pants of Joe Ryan?
No.
Which stain was it?
It had to do with some socks that may or may not have been bloodstained, and that was the focus of our conversation.
Okay. And so how many conversations did you have with Detective Leach during this process?
I only remember one specific meeting that he was present where we had a one-on-one conversation about items in this case.
Okay. And was that here in Fairfax that this meeting
Yes.
took place?
Yes,
And were you present for that here, or were you in a virtual situation?
and always present, physically present.
How long ago was that when you had your contact with Fairfax County PD?
When I talked to Detective Leach about this case,
Yes.
I don't remember the date, it's been some time ago.
Okay. Do you remember the date that you were previously here in Fairfax?
I remember what I was doing, I'd have to look up our calendar to see what date that was.
Did it coincide with another case that you were working for the Fairfax Commonwealth's Attorney's Office?
No, it's not another case.
Okay.
We were here doing some training
Okay. And training here in Fairfax?
in this area. I think it was Alexandria, maybe. I remember the physical facility. I don't remember the name of the location, but it was in this area.
Now, going back to this image, were you aware of, and I'll show you the next image, were you aware of Detective Leach asking for analysis for DNA on this juncture that's showing on the knife?
I was aware that some analysis was done. I did not talk to Detective Leach about specifically where or how the sample was collected. I think I may have looked at the results of the analysis.
Okay.
But I did not focus on this particular object.
And is it fair to say in your review of this that you looked at all of the results of the analysis that were produced in these cases, or in this case?
I don't know if I received copies of all the analysis that was done. Everything I received, I reviewed.
Okay. And in this situation, and Your Honor, I can...
Just want to mark it as
Well, what I was thinking I might do, Judge, is if we mark it A and then...
80A. Okay, this can be 80A, that's fine.
And then 80B and going forward through.
Okay.
Okay? And I'll identify it.
All right, so this is 80A, the one
Yes.
that's on the screen right now? Okay, thank you.
Ma'am, just to refresh your recollection, does that look like the analysis that you looked at?
Judge, I'm going to object.
Yep. Yes?
Best evidence. It's not the full document. The document's been admitted in evidence.
All right. Well, she needs to review the full document.
Okay.
We have it available. I think.
Ma'am, to your recollection, whose DNA was, without referring to that, whose DNA was identified on that portion of the knife?
Again, it wasn't part of my analysis. I don't recall exactly where it was.
Sloth Life, thank you very much. Timestamps are amazing. We'll see if I can get pinned. Pin a message. Which message do you want me to pin again?
Let me, this is the comments exhibit.
You got to be by a microphone. What?
Sorry, Your Honor, I'm going to look at the Commonwealth's exhibits.
Is that
I
what
think
she's
it's been
looking for?
introduced as one of the Commonwealth's exhibits.
Thanks, Red Pen. So the state says we're going to fight fire with fire. We're going to object as much as we can with you as well. See how it works out.
Your Honor, if we could pull up Commonwealth's exhibit number 160.
I can't pull up anything.
Sorry,
I can't pull up anything.
I thought that was introduced into evidence.
Yeah, but we don't have their electronic files.
Yeah, I think it's on their
This is not ours. This is the court's. If you want to use it, it's all here.
Ma'am, can I, Your Honor, if I may, I have the hard copy here. I'll just have her.
Okay, that's fine. I'll just switch it over to the lamp. Oh. You're just going to use the hard copy on the lamp? Is that?
Big pardon?
Oh, you're just going to give it to her, or are you going to
If
use
I
it on
could
the
just
lamp?
give it to her, that would be fine.
Okay, that's fine. 160, which I have is just lab sheet DNA blood.
It is lab sheet May 22, 2023.
Thank you.
Number 160.
All right, if you want to show her that, that's fine.
Ma'am, have you had an opportunity to look at that?
Sloth Life, thanks for the
Does that
5 gifted
refresh your
memberships.
recollection, ma'am?
Well, again, I don't know if this was one of the documents that I looked at. I'd have to look at my listing of the materials that I received. I recognize it as an analysis report, but I don't know if it's something I received
Okay.
or not.
In preparation for your testimony today, did you review the things that you had reviewed for testifying today?
I did look at my report. I didn't like memorize the whole list of
Okay.
of what I did receive.
So you're not certain of the specifics of the lab analysis relating to the knife in this case?
I don't recall the specifics of the knife, and as I said, I did not focus on the knife as part of my analysis as far as identifying patterns and as a result of that, whose DNA profiles might or might not be present.
Did you review it?
And would DNA profiles, whether they're present or whether they were even tested for, would those be important in some of the determinations that you've made today?
In terms of the knife itself?
In terms of any aspect of it?
In terms of everything taken together, those bloodstain patterns that I talked about, if a DNA profile was identified, then I noted that based on the relevant analysis reports that I had.
And if there were stains that weren't examined, would those be important as to informing your conclusions?
Judge objection is to form, I don't believe it's clear, examined by whom?
If you could rephrase the question.
Okay. There's, in the scenes that you've seen on the body cam, there are numerous stains, correct?
Yes,
And many of them have been tested, many of them haven't been tested, correct?
that's correct.
And in fact, you directed testing for some of them in your relationship with Detective Leach, correct?
I don't recall directing Detective Leach which stains to sample or to have tested.
Did you identify a sample that you required Detective Leach to get tested?
Not that I recall. My analysis was based on the documentation, not personal examination of the physical objects.
Ma'am, did you have an opportunity to review what would be 80D? Do you see that picture?
I see the picture, yes.
Do you recognize that picture?
Yes,
Have you reviewed that as part of this case in your examination?
yes.
Okay. In this instance, this is the injury to, is this the injury to Joe Ryan in his left hand?
This is one injury to his left thumb.
Okay. And the contusion and the bruising, do you see that?
Yes, I see the contusions to the left thumb.
Okay. And in terms of your experience as a blood spatter analyst, blood spatter pattern analyst, is it fair to say there's a greater likelihood of injury to the person who's stabbing than someone who's, or to the person, there's greater likelihood of injury to the person who has the knife and is stabbing versus others involved in the scene?
I'm sorry, I'm not exactly clear on what the question is.
Is there, let me see if I can rephrase it. In your experience, is there a greater likelihood of a stabber having an injury as a result of that knife?
A stabber?
I can't really say greater likelihood.
Okay. Have you experienced that?
Not in something measured as a greater likelihood.
Okay. Have you experienced it in some other measure?
Well, that it's not uncommon for, in a stabbing situation, especially if there's no hilt on the knife, that multiple impacts can cause the weapon itself to become slippery because blood is a fluid and is wet. their hand may slide and actually get cut.
Okay, and
Mr. Carroll, I just want to make sure, this is 80B, okay, 80B is
I'm
in
sorry,
Bravo.
yes, I was counting
I
ahead.
just want to get the record clean.
80B.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
This is the takeaway. Jurors wrote this on in their notes.
Would you agree that
Blood is wet.
this is another view of that injury?
Yes.
That would
Appears to be.
ADC, identified as ADC.
Thank you.
Ma'am, do you see this, the slide that's before you?
No, sir.
Do you see the slide that's before you now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you recognize this, this particular picture from the body cams that you looked at?
This does appear to be a still portion of one of the body cams.
Okay, and this would be identified as ADD? Ma'am, looking at ADD, do you see my client there?
Well, I recognize that the person, there is a person kneeling on the floor, and in looking at all the videos of the first officers, that person was later identified as Brendan Banfield.
Okay, and in that picture, can you see his hands?
I'm sorry, this particular image is very dark, difficult to see, but in the overall body cams, I did see his hands.
Okay, and are you saying that you don't see his hands in this picture?
I'm saying this picture is not really clear to show his hands. I see the area that I think is his hands, but the picture itself is not clear.
Okay, and do you see the blood on his hands?
I did see blood on his hands when I reviewed the body cams.
And in this picture, do you see blood on the backside of his hands?
I'm sorry, this picture is not clear enough to make a determination.
Okay.
Please
well,
drag
let's
the
look at the blood
histogram to the
stain
right.
down to his right. Do you see the portion that we've been talking about? And just if you need to look at where everything is situated in order to orient yourself, do you see the corner of the bed?
I can make out the area where the corner of the bed should be.
Okay, and can you make out the area where the saturated blood stains that you were talking about is?
Somebody needs to move that mic so it's not in front of the screen.
I can see what appears to be. Again, the picture quality is very poor.
Okay.
But from reviewing all the body cams, I do know that there was saturation areas on the carpet.
Okay, so just talking about this picture right here, this comes from when you reviewed the body cam, correct?
I reviewed all the body cam footage that was given to me for review.
And this footage is from the first body cam responder, isn't that correct?
Objection, Judge. I think it calls for speculation. She's indicated she has reviewed all of the body cam, but there has been no indication as to which body cam this came from.
If she can answer it.
The body cams of the first two officers going into the bedroom had the most information about location of persons and objects before being moved by the officers or being directed to be moved by the officers.
Okay, and in this picture, which would be ADD again, you can see the stained spot that you were talking about with the ladies and gentlemen of the jury earlier, correct?
Again, the quality of this picture is very poor, but I do know where there were saturations on the carpet based on all of my review of materials in this case.
Can you see the end of the bed?
I see what I think is the footboard of the bed.
Okay. Can you see what's on the bed?
In this picture, you just see that it's a dark object. Based on the totality of the documentation, I know what that object is.
Okay, and what object is that?
It was a handgun.
Okay. And do you know which of the handguns that it was?
Yes.
Okay, which one?
Based on all of the documentation I had, this would be the gun that was Mr. Banfield's identified as his duty weapon.
The Glock 19M, would that be it?
That sounds right.
Okay. Now, just looking at what we know about this, so you know where the gun is, even though you're saying it's a dark object, and that's, you know where the corner of the bed is, correct?
I know that the firearm, when first officers arrived in the scene, it was laying on the southeast corner of the mattress.
Okay. And so you know where the blood stain is related to the southeast corner of the mattress, correct?
The blood stain was later identified on the sheet removed from the mattress.
Do you know, we're talking about the saturated blood stain that you spoke about quite often in your direct testimony, that's at the foot of the corner of the bed.
Yes, there were multiple saturation stains on the carpet.
Okay.
One was near the southeast corner of the bed on the carpet.
Okay. And were you also, did you also review the 911 tape of the call from Fairfax County, or to Fairfax County?
I did listen to 911 recording.
Okay. Do you recall my client's statements about shooting an unknown person in the room?
I don't remember the specific verbiage. I remember that there was a reference to an injured person and a shooting.
Okay. And I'm not that worried about the detail, but what I am interested in is when he identified himself as shooting Joe Ryan, the police said, "Where are the guns now?" Do you recall that?
I don't specifically recall.
Okay. Do you recall them telling whomever was on the 911 tape, make sure the guns are visible?
Again, I don't remember the exact wording of the call.
Okay. And so you don't actually remember that from the 911 about the gun?
I don't remember the specific words that were said. I do remember specifically reviewing that there was reference to an injured person in a shooting, that was the basis for officers going to the scene.
Okay. And so would it be possible if that gun that's showing on the corner of the bed was put in the blood stain saturation that you've talked about today prior to making the 911 call?
Well, I don't know prior to the 911 call. Those are things that I can't know.
Okay.
I will say that the blood stain all along that complete side of the gun, the exposed side as you're looking at it, that it did have what appeared to be transfer. And certainly if the gun had been laid in a saturation or in a blood pool, then that would be a scenario that could not be excluded as how the blood stains came to be on that side of the gun.
Okay. And if that was left in the position that's in for purposes of the first responders, would that be something that could be tested to determine what the DNA was on, that gun itself?
If the gun itself, as it's laying there, someone could swab it and submit that swab for analysis.
Do you know if that ever happened?
That I don't know.
Okay. You never received any records of an analysis of what was on the gun?
I don't recall getting analysis of any swabbing of the gun itself.
Okay. But that would have been the most direct way to determine if there was blood or blood of a certain person or some other basis upon which to draw a conclusion if that was swabbed, correct?
To determine the DNA profile, that would be, I would think a preferable method would have been to swab it there as it's laying there. However, the gun was not left in that position. So,
Okay.
so there were some other things to consider as far as what would be tested and what would not be tested.
Oh, so when you're talking about not being left in this position that's showing here, you're talking about when the first responders moved it to the other side of the bed?
It was officers that moved it, and this gun was moved twice.
Okay.
Based on the body cams, that's what I saw.
Okay. But the DNA analysis of this area, including those saturated, soaked blood stains, I think there were 2 of them. There are a number of other stains on the mattress. The only one that was tested was the one that's right underneath the gun, where on the bedding that was underneath the gun. Isn't that correct?
Okay. If I can take them one at a time. I did not see stains on the mattress. That simply wasn't included in images that I saw of the scene. The images that I saw, I could not identify blood stains on the mattress or on that sheet that was on the bed. There were more than 2 saturations on the carpet. Trying to remember what else you put in there.
Yeah, so I'll work with you on that. Let's go through it. The 2 big saturations on the carpet. You never saw any testing of those 2 big saturations, correct?
I'm sorry, I really don't recall. I have to go back to see if any of those were specifically tested. The one directly in front of the chest of drawers would really be no reason to test that, because in the context of the scene, we know the source.
Okay.
The one closest to the foot of the bed could be tested either by sampling the saturation of the carpet itself, or there was some clothing that was partially covered some saturation, but also was stained, and that could be tested for DNA. And then there's saturation over by the dog bed that's a distance away.
Okay. And would it surprise you to know that none of those saturated positions were tested?
I wouldn't be surprised at that.
But that would give you information that would be helpful in arriving at whatever conclusion you're trying to arrive at, right?
That depends on the extent of the analysis. Like I said, the one stain pattern, there's really no reason to test, because we could see in the context of the scene, particularly in the body cams, the source of that, because the source was laying in that area when officers arrived. The other could be tested, as I say, either directly from the carpet itself or objects on the carpet that were also stained.
Now, the firearm itself, that would be something that you would probably want to be tested, correct?
I would probably have preferred that it be tested directly from that, but also consider the fact that it was moved twice by officers in the scene. So before I would look at any results on that, I'd want to know more about the officers moving it to be sure that they didn't disrupt it. That's certainly a consideration, and look at the pattern, if not the DNA.
And just so you're clear, you're talking about it being moved twice after what we're seeing on this picture, which is at the corner of the bed.
Yes, it was moved twice after officers initially entered the bedroom.
And is it possible that the gun in the position that you can see my client, even though it's dark, that gun was to his right-hand side, laying in that pool of blood that had saturated that carpet prior to it being put up on the bed?
I don't know where the gun was prior to it being put on the bed. It is generally to his right, as we're looking at where I know he was positioned in the room.
Okay. And you know that he had blood on his hands, correct?
He did have blood on his hands.
And in fact, I know you're not happy with the quality of this picture, but in other pictures that you've seen his hands with blood on the front side and blood on the back side, correct?
Yes, his hands, both hands were blood covered.
Okay, and that would be consistent with someone who's rendering aid before first responders come, isn't that right?
It's consistent with him having blood on his hands.
Okay.
He did in the,
Him having
looking at
blood on
the
his hands is
first officer
consistent with having
entering
blood
the
on his
room,
hands.
he did have his hands on her neck.
Okay, and that was, that was something that he did until the officer said, we're going to take over now, correct?
Well, when the first officer arrived, he was there with his hands on her neck, and then an officer directed him to move away, and then the officer took over trying to render aid.
Okay, so let's talk about cast off. Is that what you call it?
Cast off is a bloodstained term.
Okay, and you spoke about cast off and how it could be a linear pattern, or what you saw was a linear pattern. And so cast off is coming off of if you could just remind me again, what was your definition of cast off?
Well, the mechanism of cast off is when some object that has wet blood on it is in motion.
Okay.
And so as it moves, blood comes off in a column, in a ligament of blood will come off, break into individual droplets as it travels through air.
Okay.
And because it comes off of basically one point or one area, then when it lands on a surface, those individual droplets, as they form on the surface, will make a linear or curvilinear pattern.
Okay. And so if you have a surface that has a lot of blood, say hands, and you do this, can cast off occur?
Cast off can be any object that has wet blood on it. A finger,
Okay.
if it's a hand, then usually we'll see like more than one linear distribution
Okay.
for, say, blood coming off, depending on which fingers they are, how many. Or it can be some other object that has blood on it that's in motion, and then blood comes off that object.
And just for the court reporter, I'm just going to describe what you just did and what I did, and if I'm incorrect, please correct me. When I talked about cast off, I talked about moving my hands in a snapping fashion away from my body, or it could be downward.
Like 3 snaps in a Z
And
formation?
when you were describing that, you were saying it could be a hand, any finger, or all fingers going off of that object, correct?
Yes, any object that has wet blood on it and the object is in motion so that blood comes off of the object could produce cast off.
Okay, thank you. Now, and I guess with cast off, what I think you've identified as droplets in a linear type pattern is the words you were saying to direct examination?
That individual stains in the pattern oriented to each other will be in a linear or curvilinear pattern.
Okay, and a linear pattern, I'm just assuming what, I guess, you're talking about straight or likely straight.
Well, I say it could be linear or curvilinear, so a part of the pattern could be very straight. You could have a part where the whole line curves a bit, so it's curvilinear, but you can still, looking at it, see how they're related to each other.
Okay, and unless you actually see whatever it is that's holding that blood, you can't be certain of that, correct?
You cannot generally look at a cast-off pattern by itself to determine what the object was, other than looking at the individual stains. This came off of it's a low volume or very small surface area versus something that has a large surface area.
Okay. Now, when you're talking about the surface, and the surfaces that you're talking about in this case is you have the wall, correct?
I'm sorry, the surface area I was just referring to was the surface bearing the blood.
I understand, and I'm just moving on to surfaces that could create what you ultimately interpret. Like the wall, for example, that would be a clean surface if blood hit that, right?
Judge, objection to the mischaracterization of the answer. Her answer was about what type of object could create cast off.
Right, and he's moving on now.
Yeah, I'm moving on.
This is a new topic.
Understood, but to then use the word create, what she's talking about, I think.
Overruled.
Okay.
So just so I'm clear, I don't want to confuse. We're talking about surfaces. So like a surface like this, or a surface like this, or a surface of skin. Okay, so that would be like a tabletop, clothing, fabric, and skin.
So
I haven't asked the question yet.
okay.
Depending on what surface you're talking about, would it be easier to identify whether it's a linear pattern or even whether it's a drop pattern, excuse me if I'm not using the right term, when you're talking about like a wall or a flat surface like this versus clothing and say denim like what we have in this case, or a forearm, what we have in this case? There'd be different.
Judge, objection to the compound question.
Overruled, he hasn't asked the question yet.
I haven't asked the question yet, yeah. Would there be different things that you would consider based upon the surface that you're analyzing in coming at your conclusions?
But in looking at bloodstains, all of them, you should consider the target surface, that is the surface receiving the blood, and how it might alter a bloodstain. And again, it goes back to things like the volume of blood in the cast-off. Even something that might be absorbent like denim, if it's a very small volume, then it may not be enough blood to really be disrupted when it strikes that surface. It really depends on several factors.
Okay.
I think there was another portion to your question, but I've forgotten now.
Well, I think the actual question was in making your conclusions as to some of the things that you've said today, whether it's a circular stain, whether it's a elliptical stain, I think you talk about, or if it's a transfer stain. Would the surface have an effect on each of those different possible patterns? Or
Yes.
how you identify them?
Target surface is an important consideration with any bloodstain pattern. How will this particular surface affect the blood as it's transferring from a fluid to a drying stain on the surface? So surface is important. In terms of linear, we're looking for not just on a flat surface, but linear distributions can be identified on contoured surfaces, or a solid surface versus an absorbent. In the context of the scene, you may or may not be able to make that determination.
Now, you referenced a DLI report in your direct testimony. It said it was a private lab that the Commonwealth hired to do an examination. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I remember some of the reports were DLI.
Okay, well, there was only one, and the one was relating to the DNA that was being sought inside Joe's zipper in his button of his pants. Do you remember that?
I don't recall it being inside the zipper. It was identified to me that some sample in the area of the button or in that area was in fact sampled, and that they did find DNA profiles.
Okay, and did you read that report?
Did you read it?
I
or had
think I
glanced
did.
at it.
Okay. Isn't it true that the request for the analysis was actually not blood stains? The request for the analysis was around the blood stains for contact or touch DNA. Do you remember that?
I don't recall anything in it that says specifically how it was sampled.
Okay. So, but what my question is you spoke about transfer stains to the Commonwealth when they asked the question. You spoke about inside the zipper where the button connects, all those sorts of things. And you spoke about blood transfer stains, didn't you?
I said on the backside of the buttonhole that I could see in the image transfer stains.
Okay.
I did not say what DNA was present in those transfer stains, just that there was a report in that area, and I think it was the button side as opposed to the buttonhole side.
But my question is, did you realize that the request for DNA was not for any blood stains? It was for touch DNA around that area that was described.
Judge, objection, facts not in evidence.
Overruled if she can answer.
Did you realize that?
As I said, I wasn't a party to sampling. I don't know exactly how the sampling was done.
Okay. Well, I guess my question then is, how did it just automatically talk about transfers in that area when that wasn't part of any sort of scientific testing done by the Commonwealth of Virginia or their hired DNA person?
Judge, I'm sorry, I have to object. He is mischaracterizing what is in the certificate of laboratory
Legal
analysis.
objection, Ms. Ames.
Facts not in
Facts not in
evidence.
evidence.
Overruled.
She's mad.
I testified that I saw stains, particularly on the backside of the buttonhole.
Okay.
And looking at those stains, identified that as transfer stains.
And despite the fact that the
Buttonhole.
DNA lab didn't deal with stains at all, was that something that you dealt with the Commonwealth in preparation? Is that why you talked about stains?
I identified the stains because I looked at the picture and I saw the stains and I said what I saw. That is a separate issue from any testing that may have been done for DNA in that area.
Now, we looked at the hip stain that you identified previously, and you were testifying. It was on his Joe Ryan's hip. You testified that there were like fingers that were going down because you could conclude that the flow was going down toward the ground where the picture was, correct?
No, I said there was a blood stain on his left hip, and there was a satellite, what appeared to be satellite with a little bit of flow from that, and that direction of those flows was towards the floor, or in terms of the body relative to his body was front to back. I did not say that that was a contact, and certainly did not say it was from fingers.
Now, did you review any evidence that informed you as to what Joe Ryan's movement was before blood was on him?
There's no way looking objectively at the evidence for me to determine what he was doing before there was any bloodshed.
Okay. If the evidence was that after he was shot, he started getting up again, so we would have blood, and he was starting to get up from his position on the floor, would that be something that you would want to consider in making some sort of a conclusion for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Any statement about what he may or may not have done would not have any bearing on looking at the bloodstains and looking at what I could determine, any actions I could determine based on those bloodstain patterns.
So when you're receiving this case, you're not talking about what the homicide detectives in this case would have already found at the time that you started working with them.
I don't know what the homicide investigators themselves found or thought they had found. I was presented the documentation and I analyzed that documentation.
Okay.
And didn't have, I don't recall ever having a discussion with any of the homicide investigators about what they thought they had found.
Okay. Sorry, bear with me.
She says it wouldn't have any bearing on my analysis if the victim, Joe in this case, got up and started moving again at the scene after injuries and things had taken place. I would have thought it would.
It says here that you were provided the chief medical examiner's reports, correct?
Yes,
You were provided a DNA map from Detective Terry Leach, correct?
yes.
You were provided a blood location map from Terry Leach, correct?
A blood location map, I don't recall that.
Okay, well, if it was in your report that you wrote and it says that you received that, would you feel like that was reliable?
It's his opinion. It doesn't have a bearing on what I do. I look at the documentation separately from any of opinions that he may have formed.
Okay. And so it looks as though you were provided 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You were provided 10 certificates of analysis from the Department of Forensic Science, including the DLI case of June 1st, 2023. I'm sorry. You were provided 15 certificates of analysis, including DLI, who was a private lab, and Bodie, who was a private lab. You received those, correct?
Yes, I would have to refer to my report, but I listed everything I received.
Okay.
That doesn't mean everything I listed had a bearing on my analysis, simply that I had received it.
Okay, and I'm actually reading from that portion of your report, so I'm not trying to trick you and do anything like that. It says you have images of Juliana Perez Magalhaes, 31 images.
Okay.
You have images of Brendan Banfield, 180 images. Does that sound right?
There were a number of images. I don't recall the exact number. I have to refer to my report.
I'll go through them quickly because I know you can't just in the moment. 137 images of Christine Banfield, 177 images of Joe Ryan. You have 1,326 scene images. You have evidence examination images, 1951. Evidence images, 308. X-rays of Christine Banfield and Joe Ryan, correct? You have,
Yeah, if you're reading the list, then yes, that would be correct.
okay. You have 40 Axon body cams from the police department, 37 fleet cams, Axon interview cams. Now, that's what I'm asking about. The Axon interview cams, those would be interviews relating to this investigation and the evidence that was being compiled as they went on, right?
There were some interview cams of interviews when they were done by some detective to some interviewee, and yes, I looked at those.
Okay, and those interview cams, if they contained the factual predicate that I said to you sometime earlier, that Joe Ryan had gotten up from his position on the floor before he was shot by Juliana Perez Magalhaes, would that change your position with regard to what you've described on the hip, if he was in an upright position versus laying down as he was in the picture?
No. The blood stain is what it is. I simply described what it is and what that tells me about this small portion of the scene. Any statements that anyone makes, I do not take as being factual.
Okay.
That's
And
subjective as opposed to objective evidence.
Thank you. And so, going along with what you said, the pictures of Joe Ryan laying on the bed and you, the dog bed where the saturation stain was, do you recall it?
There was a saturation on the dog bed, especially to his left and onto the carpet.
Okay. And so you ended up drawing flow patterns that were going down his neck, correct?
I
Do you remember?
I looked at those and I showed where those were to focus the attention on them.
Okay, and that was for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, right?
Yes?
Okay, and so let's just go through some of those flow patterns. So when the flow patterns are coming straight down off of his chin, down his neck, that would suggest to you that he was upright?
Not necessarily. He could be laying on his back and have flow,
Okay.
depending on the position of his head, if it's to the right, to the left, or straight up.
And we're talking about a head wound to the right-hand side, right?
Yes,
Okay, and we're talking about flow patterns that would go down, and then there were some that went down and down the jawline, correct?
there was
You
some.
remember?
There were some that were kind of downward from the left side. Then there were some from the left traveling over towards the right, and there were some from the right that went what looked to be pretty much straight up and down if you took the body and oriented in the anatomic position.
Okay, and so those flow patterns that you drew for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury were to show different possibilities or different, different positions, I guess, that blood would have been coming down his face?
We're simply showing what's there. This is what the flows were, and the fact that they're in different directions indicated that there was movement.
Okay, so anything on the right-hand side, would the shot through his temple and the blood and everything that came from that, would that cover what happens on the right-hand side?
If his head was upright at the time, then blood could flow from the wound down, pretty much straight down. That's one possibility.
And I know you reviewed the medical examiner's report. Did you see the portion where she opined that there was aspiration of blood? There'd been blood going down into his throat?
I would expect that there would be, and looking at the blood stains on his face, there's some stains, especially just around the lips, that look like they could be aspirated, and, I'm sorry, expirated.
Expirated, yes.
That means that any time that there's fluid, blood, and air is forced through that, such as blood in the throat, and he's trying to exhale, then that produces little bubbles, if you will, coming up, and then they fall back. And if he's on his back, they'd fall back in the same position, and you see this little kind of sort of pockmark looks in the blood, and that's one way of looking at expirated blood.
But that could be another another source of blood for what you drew down his neck, correct?
Well,
is it possible?
I wouldn't expect for expirated blood, as in just exhaling through blood, to have enough volume that you would have flow from that.
So you're saying that that's not possible?
I say I would not expect there to be enough volume in an expirated blood stain that you would actually have.
Okay.
In a situation where if you're talking about someone who's basically not active at that point.
Okay, well, and okay. So are you saying it's not possible that any of those lines that went down his neck would not have been from aspiration blood? Are you saying it's not possible?
I would say that I would not expect expirated blood to have the flow, to present that kind of flow, especially where we look at where it's coming from the side. And I really wouldn't expect that much volume. If he's laying on his back and expirating through the blood, that you have enough volume to flow down his chin.
And if he was not laying on his back, would that change your expectation, is the way you want to answer it?
If he's, say, upright, then I would expect expirated blood to be going away from his face as opposed to coming back to his face.
Okay.
So I really would not expect that.
So when I ask the question, is it possible, you answer, I wouldn't expect to see it. But can you answer my question? Is it possible that expirated blood came out of his mouth down on any of those, depending on how the head was facing.
I think if blood is coming from his mouth, in a situation where you could have expirated blood, then there could be a volume of blood in the mouth, and that volume of blood could overflow and produce flow, say, down his chin.
Okay, so it's possible.
It's possible from blood
Okay, that's
to
what I
come from
wanted
the
to get
mouth.
to.
It's
Thank
not
you.
expirated, but it is possible for it to come from the mouth.
Wow. They're fighting over every detail here. As we would expect.
Your Honor, I'm going to X out of this.
All right.
You're not going to terminate it? You're going to X out? It's sort of it's blood flow. They're trying to see if the blood could have been on his face going different directions, indicating movement, if it came out of his mouth, if he had breathed some in and coughed it out. Sorry if I'm
Are you able to see a picture on your screen?
It's just your screensaver.
Okay, sorry. Let me see if I can change that.
A little distracted. I'm thinking up advertising slogans for my newly discovered e-bike dealership. If you guys have some good ideas, please let me know. If you missed learning about that, apparently a manufacturer has posted my private
Ma'am, can you see
contact
those two
information
pictures side by side?
as a dealer.
Yes,
Okay, do you recognize those pictures?
yes,
Okay. In the picture on the right, we've taken a look at, in a different form, the Commonwealth's version. And in those droplets, you've described them as droplets of blood in a linear-like pattern.
in a linear distribution.
Linear distribution, thank you. And then, do you recognize the other picture?
Yes,
And that's also a portion of a picture that you've already looked at.
yes,
Now, the one, I guess, droplet in the left picture, you've described as airborne, correct?
yes,
But the droplets that you have on the right side, and Your Honor, I would identify this as Defense Exhibit 83.
83, you're not going alphabet anymore?
This is a different,
Okay, 83. Okay.
I think, because we were at 82.
No, we were at 80, A, B, C, D, and E.
Oh, I'm sorry, then this would be 81.
This is 81. Okay, no 80. All right.
Ma'am, the picture on the right side, you say that these are droplets in a linear, and you just said it,
distribution.
distribution, thank you. But the droplet that in the left one is airborne distribution, correct?
Well, I'm sorry, the one on the left is not a distribution, it is a stain.
Okay, so it's an airborne stain.
All of
Correct.
those you're talking about are airborne, whether they're droplets on as we look at on the picture on the right, or the picture on the left, airborne in that the droplet traveled through air, even if that travel is downward.
So they're all airborne droplets?
Those are, yes.
Okay, and so there's no distinction between the droplet portions on either picture in your mind?
Well, in terms of defining whether or not they're airborne, they're all airborne. That is, the droplets travel through air, even if that travel was straight down.
Now, the other part of the picture on the right was, I think you had testified, actually, strike that. I'll just leave that as that. Your Honor, court's indulgence for one moment.
Yes, sir.
I think we're good. just end it here. Just look over to the jury, see the blank look on their faces, and say no further questions. Unless you want to question her on gravity, and then I'm all here for that. Let's go into gravity really quickly and magnetism.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Keep an eye on the storm for this next weekend. It's not looking good for a bunch of us. Ice and snow's coming. I guess winter's here finally.
Your Honor, you can take that picture down. No further questions.
All right.
Bingo.
Regret?
Yay. Just say no, nothing further. Please don't go back. Rehash everything again.
George Penn? Judge, if we can display what was previously admitted as Commonwealth's 222, I believe under seal.
222 is not under seal.
Judge, it probably,
Should have been.
okay, that's fine.
It was under, not under seal, 222.
That's fine. Ms. Dallegraph, hi. So let's kind of go in reverse here. Where he left off was with what you see on your screen. Let me make it big so we're looking at just that. Mr. Carroll was drawing your attention to this droplet here. Is that correct?
Yes,
And was comparing it to then the droplets that we see on Mr. Ryan's arm. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay, and I think perhaps there was just a little bit of confusion talking about blood in flight, blood in the air. When we looked at 222, the picture and the portion of the picture that you were drawing our attention to, referencing flow, gravity, and the position of the body, is this lower stain on his hip. Is that correct?
It's the one that shows any type of a flow associated with it, is the one that's on the lateral side, or the side of the outside side of his left hip. And it's that particular stain clearly is larger than the stains that we were just talking about airborne could be falling,
Okay.
from above, so.
Do you believe that the stain that we see to the left on Mr. Ryan's hip is part of the pattern that leads us then to the droplet of blood that we see on the right?
I don't see that as forming a pattern.
Okay. Do you believe that they happened at the same time?
Well, a pattern, if I could define my
Please.
term, a pattern is a group of stains that are related to each other that happen from a single mechanism, a single incident. These are different mechanisms to produce this, and therefore it's not the same. Whether or not they're simultaneous in time is a different issue.
Okay. So then let's talk about the mechanism. Were these droplets produced by the same mechanism?
But depends on which droplets that you're talking
Sorry,
about.
let me be clear. The droplets that we see to the right of our screen on his abdomen, were they produced by the same mechanism as the area of blood, the stain that we see on his hip with the flow lines coming from it down towards the floor?
They don't appear to be the same mechanism.
Okay, thank you. So back at the beginning, Mr. Carroll asked you about your report, and we started with the knife. Let me ask you, do you recall when did you produce your report to Fairfax County Police?
I don't remember the date of the report. It's been some time ago.
Do you have a copy of your report with you?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you have any documents with you that would refresh your recollection?
No, I do not.
Did you leave it back here?
I do have a digital copy back there.
If you refreshed your recollection with the digital copy, would that enable you to answer the question about when the report was produced?
Yes.
Your Honor, if I may retrieve her digital copy. Thank you.
I didn't bring my report with me. I'm just an expert witness. I made a report, but I didn't bring it for the day when I needed to talk about
If I may
my report.
Thank you.
Oh man, Josh, I need to go buy water right now. Water, bread, and milk. That's what I need to get. Milk used to be 98 cents a gallon, like last month in my area. Now it's like gone up to $2.
All right. When did you produce your report for the Fairfax County Police Department?
Report date August 21, 2024.
All right, thank you.
I think we're good there.
And you did not examine the knife. You said it was not part of your analysis. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Why not?
Because in the body cam video, there were multiple places that showed where the knife was altered, if you will, by officers in the scene. That is, officers coming in, walking in the area where the knife was. You see the knife in one orientation, then another orientation. It gets flipped over, it gets pressed down. So based on that, anything that's on the knife could have been transferred from the floor to the knife. There's also bedding, fabric that's on the floor, part of which has saturations to it. So that could have transferred from that to the knife. So there were so many alterations that could be seen in the body cam that would confuse anything that we get from the knife. So we don't know if, say, the bloodstains on the knife were there before officers arrived, or if it happened as a consequence of the knife being moved as the officers are coming in and with their footwear, hitting it, pushing it, stepping on it, and so forth.
All right. At the same time, Mr. Carroll asked you about swabbing the gun, and you indicated that you did not observe any samples taken from the gun. Is that correct?
That's correct. I was not a party to the sampling itself.
All right. But you did receive DNA results from testing performed on the sheet underneath where the gun was resting when police entered the room. Is that correct?
If I may refer.
Yes, it's fine.
Sorry, it doesn't list it as far as, the items are not listed with the name of the report, and I don't think I included in my report anything about that particular stain. I didn't see the stain. I didn't see it in the body cam and the still images in the scene, and I don't recall getting pictures of the sheet itself where someone else looked at that. So that wouldn't be, I'm not going to analyze something I didn't actually look at.
Sure, understood. But you did receive the certificate of laboratory analysis indicating that that sheet was tested.
I remember being aware that there was testing based on a pattern that someone else saw in the evidence examination outside the scene.
Okay, and that certificate of analysis was reflective of the results of testing the sheet from the gun's first position on body-worn camera, is that correct?
Well, again, I only know that from things I've heard said. I didn't see the pattern on the sheet, so I didn't make an analysis of the pattern because I didn't have it to look at. If someone else did that, and which I was told that they did, and that they had submitted something for analysis, okay.
All right. Mr. Carroll asked you, though, about would you have preferred to have the gun tested? You indicated sure, all things being equal. But is there any reason why a test result on the gun would have been unreliable?
Well, again, I can't evaluate something I didn't look at. So one possibility is that looking at the condition of the gun as it's laying on the sheet, it is covered on the one side. If then it's had the same stain pattern on the opposite side, then it certainly could have transferred blood from the side of the gun to the sheet, and then it would be reliable to say it come from that. But not having looked at that pattern myself, I really can't say. There could be other transfers, assuming it was a transfer, and I don't know because I didn't see that pattern.
Sure. I guess what I'm asking is, you testified that you observed the gun being moved from that location. Is that correct?
I observed it being moved twice by officers in the scene.
So if testing had occurred after those movements, is there any reason to think it might not have been reliable?
I have nothing to base an opinion on.
Okay. All right. So you also were asked if it was possible that the blood on the gun had come from the stain on the floor, and you answered that yes, that was a possibility, correct?
Looking at the side of the gun as it's laying on the mattress, it's consistent with a transfer front to back on the gun, fully that side of the gun. And one possibility for that is that it was in fact on a saturation stain, or it possibly could have been a blood pool or some other transfer, because it appears to be a transfer pattern on the full side of the gun.
Is it possible that that transfer pattern was created by a bloody hand?
I didn't see anything that in the pattern that would tell me it was a bloody hand, unless it's a hand in motion, and it really I didn't see striations that I could identify motion. So I don't know if just bloody hand contacting the gun would be right or not. If it's a transfer just from holding a gun in normal position, I wouldn't expect it to have all along the full length front to back. As long as you're holding it in the normal position, I would expect a bloody hand to transfer blood around the grips and possibly a portion of the slide, especially directly above, or I'm sorry, below the trigger, or just above the trigger guard. That's normally what we see in bloody hands handling a gun. In this case, it looks like a transfer full front to back length. That looks a little bit more like a broader surface, like on a saturation stain or in a blood pool. But other than that, I don't have enough information to make any further determination.
Okay, thank you. If we go back for a moment.
Or just go forward.
Mr. Carroll asked you about the injury on Mr. Ryan's thumb and whether or not it was consistent with injuries sustained by someone who's using a knife. you explained what did the injuries look like from slippage on a knife?
Typically, if you're looking at a knife slipping, a person wielding a knife, especially repeated blows, without a hilt on the knife, then their hand may slip down, usually down the blade, and they could get a cutting injury themselves. That's not an uncommon thing in multiple stabbing situation.
In your review of
Those
Mr.
cuts
Ryan's
usually
autopsy,
go
did you
this
see any
direction
such
across
wounds?
the hand or the fingers.
No.
All right.
Just be done, state. Wave the white flag, call mercy, whatever it is. Just, I think we're done.
Mr. Carroll asked you about testing the blood saturation stains on the carpet in front of the dresser and the stain closest to the foot of the bed. You indicated that there was no reason to test the stain in front of the drawers because we know the source. Can you elaborate? Who was the source?
Well, I would say the source would be Christine Banfield, because when officers come in, where you see that saturation in front of the chest of drawers is where her upper body was. And we could see that Mr. Banfield had his hands on her neck when the officers first came. They immediately have him move and take over, trying to assist, and therefore knowing from the autopsy what type of wound that is and everything, then that it would be predictable that a saturation would be in that area. So when you see that, finding any other DNA profile in there would be difficult to explain in terms of the scene. Traces of someone else might be there, but the blood itself, we can see the source.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll asked you, after demonstrating with his hands a particular movement, whether or not cast off,
What movement was
like that found on the walls, like that found on Mr. Banfield's pants, could have been created by the handshaking motion that he demonstrated. You indicated what? Was that a possibility?
Okay, one, I did not identify a cast off on the wall. There were some elliptical stains, just separate from anything else, so I can't really categorize that other than there's some elliptical stains. Cast off can be from any blood-bearing surface that's in motion, such that blood comes off of it, whether it's a single point, a point of a finger, the point of a knife, any other object that has wet blood on it that's in motion, that blood comes off. If it's flicking of the hands, and if they have bloody fingers, then I would expect to see probably multiple lines that would show that it came off of something of a continuous space. So lines from each one that is more than one point. But it's any object in motion. So even identifying cast off doesn't tell you what created the cast off. Sometimes in a scene context, it could be narrowed down to one object, but many times you have to say, okay, it could be this or it could be that. There could be multiple items.
Judge, if we can pull down the photo for just a moment. And if we can look at Commonwealth's previously admitted 185. And if I can have that displayed, please.
I don't have a 185.
I'm sorry?
I don't have a 185.
Okay.
The numbering problem continues. Are they just making up numbers every time they say one? There's been like 15 of those today.
186?
I have a 186, yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Dallegraf, is this cast-off pattern consistent with someone's hands shaking away from their body?
Well, it's consistent with for one, it's not just one pattern. There are multiple lines there, and some object, blood-bearing object, in motion so that blood comes off.
All right. Could that object have been a knife?
I can't exclude a knife if there's a blood-bearing surface of the knife and the knife is in motion. That's one possibility.
Mr. Carroll asked you if there had been evidence that after Mr. Ryan was shot, he had started to get up. Would that have had bearing on your analysis? And do you recall your answer?
Yes, I said I only look at the objective evidence. So if I had seen that evidence, it would be described in my report. So it's not based on any statement that anybody made.
All right, and so that objective evidence was not provided to you, is that correct?
Well, the bloodstains are what they are. And if I don't see a bloodstain that specifically shows me that he was upright, then I can't say that he was upright.
Based on your review of all of the evidence, could Mr. Ryan have gotten up after he was shot?
Objection, Your Honor. I mean, this is
If
going
you want
to...
to approach.
This is going to the world of absurdity is what we're doing. Based on all the evidence, could he have gotten up after he was shot? I think she's going to say either she can't tell or it's possible. I also think we're almost at the end. We're almost at the end of this witness, which means we have probably a 15-minute break, a mercy break, where we all go outside, just breathe fresh air and yell into our pillows, and then come back for the last witness here today. That's my gut feel. I also think the prosecution will be objecting to the bill they get from this professional witness, this expert, because I don't think they're getting what they thought they were paying for. It is painful. Like, she is fighting everybody on everything. Usually when you pay an expert witness, they have a general idea what they would like you are, sort of what you're there to say, right? This is what the people who are paying me are paying me for.
Let me ask the question again, just so you recall. Could Mr. Ryan have gotten up after he was shot?
Which time?
Either.
It's entirely possible
yes.
that he would be mobile after the first shot because that shot went behind his eyes and did not incapacitating. That is, it did not approach the brainstem, it did not take out the midbrain, it did not destroy the cerebellum, it did not sever the spinal cord, it did not shock the spinal cord. It's simply behind the eyes. So there is certainly an open possibility that he could move after that shot.
How about the second shot?
Well, after the shot to the chest, the evidence indicates that they recovered a bullet from the spine and that the spinal cord had a concussion at that point, and that wound path included perforations to the heart, to the pericardium, and so forth. But especially that it would have hit the spine, that he would not be able to get up from that.
So could Mr. Ryan, after receiving the shot to his chest, and Judge, I'd like to share Commonwealth's 241, previously admitted, under seal. Could he have put his hands in that position?
She's a blood splatter or spatter expert.
This is it's not exactly a yes or no question.
All right.
It's a yes or no question.
Could a person fall back with their hands on their chest? That's a possibility. Could they do that and have all the other blood stains where they are? That doesn't work together.
That does not work together?
Well, he has to some way have all this blood on his face and be in a different position so that you get blood on the left side of his face, not just the right side. And now he's laying here. So The answer is, I don't see how with both of those together, I mean, there's a sequencing issue then, especially if we determine that the headshot was in fact the first and then the chest shot. So.
Can you explain, I'm sorry, you said there's a sequencing issue. What is that sequencing issue?
Your Honor, I'm going to object.
All right, I'll sustain the objection
All
at
right.
this point.
Wow.
To understand your testimony,
Sum it up.
if he had fallen like that, his hands could be in that position. Is that correct?
Objection leading.
His hands by themselves could possibly, I can't say that I've ever seen one fall quite like this, but could possibly, if he already had his hands kind of in front of him, it could fall back and they just fall into that position.
But knowing his injuries following the second gunshot wound, could he have intentionally placed his hands in that position?
Once again, Judge, I'm going to object.
I'll sustain the objection.
All right, that's fine. I think we've gotten there. Thank you. No further questions.
All right, just
You think we've gotten there?
Judge, just for the moment.
All right, so since you're subject to recall, you cannot discuss your testimony with anybody, and you're still subject to the rule on witnesses, okay? All right, you can have a seat outside. Let's go ahead and take our afternoon break for
We think
15 minutes.
we've
We'll come
gotten
back
there.
at 3:30. Again, do not discuss the case with anybody and don't do any outside research, okay?
Oh my goodness. Iris Dallygraph. She was so far outside her realm of expert testimony on that at the end. She didn't even know what the state was asking. She didn't know if they wanted a yes or a no. And so she answered the question, and she's not sure if that's what they wanted. And they ask again, and she's like, waiting for cute clues. Of course, the state can't lead.
All right.
All right.
And you have one more witness, is
I do.
that correct? Do you know how long that witness is going to be approximately?
Not very long at all, Judge. I would imagine less than a half hour,
Half hour,
probably
then
10
cross.
minutes of direct.
Okay,
and
so
then
we'll probably
20 of
finish the
cross.
day with, all right, okay, let's go ahead and we'll take a recess until 3:30.
All rise.
All right. We get a break till 3:30. Sorry, I gave you a break early.
Yeah.
We'll go off the record real quick. Okay. We're back. We're back. What do you want to talk about for about 15 minutes? I wish there was something we could summarize and spend time discussing and analyzing the testimony and the impact it would have in the minds of the jury. I just don't think any of that applies with this witness. And it's not all the witness's fault. Half of it is. I'd say half is her fault. Half is shared equally between prosecution and defense, who between their, I'll say it, terrible questioning style and mannerisms and speed and pace and everything else, and then the witness's terrible demeanor on the stand. It wasn't terrible, but it was bad in combination with everything else. I don't know if anyone got anything out of that was beneficial. We got a little bit of, yes, some blood was, the way the blood showed up there, it looks like it was added to him. I guess that was the win. That's what the state looks like. The crime scene was modified after he died. Is basically what they're trying to say. That's the win the state wanted. But it was terrible. Oh look, somebody's calling about an e-bike. Let me see if I can sell one here. Just one second. It's not an e-bike. It's somebody else.
Call from Legally Bored.
legally bored. Hey, can I interest you in an e-bike?
Maybe next time.
Okay.
Okay. So fluid is wet and the Earth's magnetic pull on its axis
is gravity.
Determines, right.
Yes.
So, okay, this is what I think, personally, and I said it in chat too. I think that there was too much blood and too much disturbance to the scene for there to be a proper spatter analysis, no matter what, no matter how good the analyzer is. Yeah. There was too much going on.
Every piece of evidence, including the bodies, were moved.
Right.
The weapons,
exactly.
all three weapons were moved. the sheets, the knife, the bodies, and we had, I don't know, half the police force go through that room before we opened it up to the investigators.
Right, which is what I think defense was trying to highlight, and they got us there, kinda. But I think they did their job. Like, I don't think that, like, the scientific method could be used in that room for this crime on blood spatter. There's just too much.
I'm still just floored by how the state ended by asking, is it possible for someone to get shot and end up in this position? They're asking of somebody who, what was her expertise again? Oh yeah, blood spatter and stain pattern forensic analysis expert. This is like maybe ME, maybe crime scene investigator, expert witness area, but just blood spatter? You're asking
the prosecution shouldn't be dealing in possibilities anyway. That should have been a question that was asked by defense. Defense deals in possibilities because possibilities, alternate possibilities, equal reasonable doubt.
Yes.
Prosecution should not be dealing in possibilities. That was embarrassing, in my opinion.
I feel embarrassed for them right now.
Me too. I just really called to say that because, I mean, I know we're buying time. And I just thought everyone really probably wanted to hear my voice.
The chat has been calling out relentlessly for it, so I appreciate you.
I knew it.
But I don't know. I'm sort of torn between this and my new bike dealership. Trying to get the advertising on the shop space and everything lined up. Obviously, we'll need to lease a building. I just have so much going on right now.
You really do. I wonder what would happen on an e-bike if there was blood. I mean, what if there was a stationary bike in that room? Could the blood have hit the wheel and then somehow the wheel got turned and blood got splashed on the wall? Let's bring this full circle. Look at all these possibilities. How can we know?
Could have been on a bike. You're right.
Right.
That would account for everything, and it would probably still work with all the evidence we have. Man, now we're deep in the weeds. But,
okay, we are not any deeper than they were. Seriously, they took us here. They brought us to this point.
If you were the prosecutor,
okay,
who do you put on as your last witness to put a cap on all this, to polish this off and hand it to the jury? Clearly, I would have probably gone with, I don't know, co-defendant would be great right now. At this point in the trial, this would be really gripping because she's telling the story of what happened, and in my mind, it's matching up with all the evidence I've heard from the police officers and everything. I think they put them on in the wrong order. I think they should have saved that spicy testimony till the end.
Me too. And I thought they brought her in early because they needed her to lay the story out. So that way, when they produced other evidence, the other evidence would make sense as opposed to trying to piece it together later. But they didn't. I mean, really, everything falls on her testimony. And I'm not sure that's great because I think that chat is pretty much 50-50 on whether she was credible or not. I think we all agreed that her story or her testimony was for sale to the most advantageous bidder.
I think the au pair, with all the flaws that she has and the incentives to testify, was a better witness than what we just had from Mrs. Graff.
I agree. So my last witness, well, it depends on who says what. What if they bring in the au pair that they had prior to Juliana? I think her name was Melissa, because that was in his phone. And maybe at some point, homeboy was coming on to her too, and she saw the writing on the wall and dipped out. Or maybe they bring in somebody from Christine's family to be like, they had been having problem after problem after problem. She came to me. She told me she was afraid for her life. That would be a good witness to close on if they have someone to offer that type of testimony.
I'm down with that. Let's bring Melissa on. Au pair number 2. Amanda was her name? I think Amanda.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever. And she was in remember when they went through his call log? And it says
he called her the day
He called her, right, the day of. Like when he meant to, or I don't know if he meant to, but he called her in the midst of all the chaos.
I've heard of moving on after losing a spouse, but calling someone before the police have arrived, that's quick. I'm not sure what the the reason for the call.
And he was trying to move on to the wrong au pair. It wasn't even the one who was helping him.
Oh man, maybe I don't know. I don't know who they have left to call.
Who would you bring on?
I said I would have done the au pair. Even bringing her back.
So
is she isn't she subject to recall? I think she is.
Oh yeah, and they were emphatic about that, both of them, that she was subject to recall.
So I'd bring her
they
back.
kind of hem-hawed around about other people, whether they were subject to recall, but both of them simultaneously answered yes, that she was subject to recall after the conclusion of her testimony. So maybe she is. But I think they're going to pull her back up on rebuttal.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out here in just a couple of minutes. Legally Blonde, thanks for coming in and filling some time. We have another question that takes us another direction, so I'll let you go and
yes.
say thank you. We'll talk
thank
to
you.
again
Have a
soon.
good day.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye. Clever name. Clever name says, random topic during break. Views versus subscribers. At what point does retention start to have an influence, whether positive or negative? I have no clue. Clever name, I can tell you this. If you're looking for a YouTube plaque, you need the subscribers. But there are lots of channels that have a plaque that don't get any views. So I would say what the metric that probably means the most to me as a YouTube content creator is watch hours. How many hours a day are people watching the content that I'm producing? And for me, a good day of watching is around 15,000 watch hours in a day, and I think that's positive for me. Not sure if that helps or if it doesn't, but all right. Ivan, what's up, Ivan? I'm seeing people. Seeing messages. I missed the first message from Ayden to see what's happening. Sorry, let me scroll backwards here. Oh no. Well, I'm dealing with being pushed out of the very company I helped keep financially solvent by buying in. Mrs. is whistleblowing at CPS prison. Oh my goodness. Ivan, it's a rough morning. Court, thank you very much for the kind words. Make a watch hour playlist and have others play it. That's what I tried to do. Where's Phil to report? Phil is not in the courtroom. Wisely today, I think I would say good choice. This was not interesting. Bolshevik Muppet, thank you very much. Appreciate the watch hours. Yeah. Ivan's wife is a mandatory reporter. All right. Where are we now? Tomorrow's my anniversary. It started here. 80s Music Man. Tomorrow. Congratulations. OG. We are just a couple minutes away from starting up what will be the last witness in this trial. And I'm looking at the time. We're looking at 3:30, roughly, is the start time. If it's a quick witness, and oh my goodness, please just get your ducks in a row when you're asking the questions. And hopefully the witness themselves is not trying to be the star of the show, right? Just answer the dang question. That's it. You're under oath. Answer the question. Don't pontificate. Don't qualify anything else. Just answer the direct question, and we'll get to the end of this, and then the state's going to rest, and then we get to see possibly tomorrow if the defense is going to put on any witnesses at all, or if they just wave the white flag at the end and throw it to the mercy of the jury. Let's see. Second au pair found out about first with discovery and wasn't happy. I think the state really fumbled the ball. I'll tell you this, the state, for how big they talked in the open, they bragged that they had an open and shut case and they could prove this 6 ways till Sunday even without the au pair. And I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it. There's a lot of questions here that they haven't proven. Amber says I may or may not play RA live streams on replay as background noise to give extra watch hours. Shh. You mean you're glued to the screen watching on replay? I think the state has sucked in this trial. It's been difficult. I want to know the tea about the whole investigative team. That's what we expect to come out during the defense case in chief. That's when we start hearing about the division amongst the investigators and who was fired and who was transferred because they thought the investigation should go a certain direction or another. We're hoping to hear that as well. The prosecutor said it'll be about half an hour for the witness, but then how long for the defense on cross? It could get really spicy here. Like this has had some slow moments in this trial, obviously, but it could get very, very interesting right at the end. I think it's a slap in the face, says Camilla, of the citizens that the au pair gets time served and the other defendant gets more time. It's infuriating. Let's see. Bad Mouse Finals, I saw your Earth gravity drawing. That is funny. Person who squeals gets the deal. The one who talks first definitely has the cards in their favor. The second person has, there's much less incentive for the state to make a deal with you if you're like, yeah, I'll agree, I'll tell you everything. And they're like, we already know. What, give us something we don't have. Prostech experts were performance managed and moved off the case. They found there was no evidence anyone else was using her devices. Did the prosecution arrest? Not yet, Laurie, but we expect them to later this afternoon. I'm all for rewarding people who to plea. They save money by not going to trial. Gina Bell says if I were on the jury, I could not convict. They just showed that they did need the au pair's testimony. Yeah. Good stuff. It is 3:30. I think this is when the judge said we would be back. So. My sister is now retired from Broadway as a director of her company that supplies au pairs to the 1%. And the au pair gets her deal with her out of conviction. Yes, Angelique, she does. Her deal is for her cooperation. It's not based on the outcome of the trial. That would be unfair to make a deal and say, you tell everything, you admit to this crime. If you do that and the jury believes you, then we'll give you a deal. So yeah, that would be unfair that way. Have a real hard time letting him walk, but I do think I could convict someone based on our testimony alone. I don't know. I think a jury can convict here. I think they can convict. The au pair, the truthfulness, yes, she has all the incentive in the world to lie, but the truthfulness that came across in her story, her consistency through the story, how it matched up with the physical evidence on the scene, I think a jury's going to draw the connection here.
No, I saw that.
Judge is back. She saw something.
Please be seated and come to order. All right, are we ready for the jury then?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Hold on, Deputy Johnson. Either the microphone or, yeah, good. Well, you can, but there's no jury here.
I guess when you went off the bench,
okay.
Was it, I've heard that you were going to have their last witness?
Their last witness, and we'll see where we are at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. If it's only going to take a half hour, I assume you have a motion,
yeah.
So we would do that outside I can let the jury go home early. We could do your motion,
okay.
And then start tomorrow with your case. Does that sound
sounds
okay?
good. That sounds good. I just
Good.
wanted to make sure, because I think there were people here
Okay.
that I had ready in the event.
Yeah,
but
I understand, but I think if it's
we
going
let them
to,
go.
if it's going to take till 4:15, I mean, I might
Yeah.
as well just excuse them.
Yeah,
at
no,
that
that's
point.
fine. I just want to be certain.
Okay, sure, no, I appreciate it. All right, thank you. All right, now,
That motion is a judgment of acquittal. We'll be making that this evening. Jury's coming back in. Half-hour witness. Who could it be now? Defense has people here. That means they're probably going to put on a case.
Can you look while we're sitting?
all right, your next witness,
Your Honor, we have called Gary Benson.
Gary Benson.
Gary Benson. Who's Gary Benson? I have not heard that name mentioned frequently in the trial yet.
Stand here, please, Madam Clerk, raise your right hand. Swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case under penalty of law. I do.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you please state your full name and spell it for the court record?
Yes, it's Gary Benson. It's GaryBenson.
Mr. Benson, are you the father of Christine Banfield?
Yes, I am.
Who was Christine Banfield married to?
Brendan.
Do you recall when they were married?
Yes, they were married in June 12th of 2010.
Okay. Did they have a daughter?
Yes, her name is Valerie Ava.
All right. And when was Valerie born? Do you recall that day?
March 30th, 2018.
Thank you. Were you present for her birth?
Absolutely.
All right. Where did that occur?
It happened at the hospital in New York, Good Samaritan Hospital.
All right. Remembering Christine's childhood, did you observe any medical symptoms that gave you concern?
Yes, several bruising, bloody noses.
Were they more than the average child's experience?
Yes, yeah, it was a concern to a pediatrician as well.
Judge, I'm sorry, I'm going to object about medical testimony.
Objecting to medical testimony.
Your Honor, at this point in time, he hasn't testified to medical
Okay,
information.
I'll rule objection at this point. Yes.
Bruising?
Tell me about the nosebleeds. What did you observe?
They were frequent and very hard to stop. So the doctor was, why we brought it to the doctor to go over that reasoning.
All right. Did you have to do anything to help her with these nosebleeds and bruising?
Well, yeah, we would do normal, put ice packs on the back of her head, keep her elevated so that, until it stopped, which was prolonged. Took quite a long time for them to stop.
And after these experiences, did you seek help of a medical professional?
Yes, we took her back to the pediatrician who suggested that she be tested
Without telling us what the pediatrician told you.
Oh, you just asked me what I did.
I
sorry.
understand. So let me ask you that question. What did you do?
We took her to the doctor.
Okay. Did you take her to just one doctor?
No.
Okay. How many doctors did you take her to?
My recollection, too.
All right. And after taking her to these doctors, did you form an understanding of why Christine bruised easily and her nosebleeds were difficult to stop?
Yes.
Okay.
Judge, I'm going to object. That's informed by the medical professor.
All right.
We should have here if we're going to.
Okay, I'll sustain the objection unless you have a different.
Yeah, Judge, if the
foundation.
objection is hearsay, there's an exception. If the objection is foundation, we can go farther into how he formed his understanding.
What's your exception to hearsay?
Sure, Judge.
If you want to approach.
Wow.
You can approach, please.
The state is trying to present the medical conclusion that she was what? That she had she was a hemophiliac? And it was difficult to stop bleeding once she started bleeding? But they bring the dad in for this, not any medical doctor. She's saying if the objection to hearsay is foundation, we can bring more foundation. No, it would still make it hearsay. Hearsay is not a thing that gets cured by foundation, right? Did I hear that correctly? Objection, hearsay. Well, I'll lay some more foundation for you. It's still hearsay. It's an out-of-court statement by somebody else. Doesn't it sound like a discovery issue? It sounds, I don't know. I don't know why this would be pertinent to the murder unless you're saying he knew that she would bleed out by cutting her.
As a result of Christine's easy bruising and nosebleeds, did she need to take any precautions?
Did she take any precautions? Well, as a parent, we took precautions to safeguard. When she rode a bike, she had to wear a helmet, knee pads, hand pads. Same thing with rollerblading. She was one that when she was little, she liked to do all that stuff, but we restricted her from doing that because of all the injuries that she was getting like that. So, that continued for quite some time, keeping a close eye on her.
Did you provide her with any medication to take?
She didn't take anything on a regular basis. There was no medication for it at the time to take on like a maintenance drug or anything like that.
I'm sorry, there was not a maintenance drug?
There was no maintenance drug for what was the cause of everything.
When she was little, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a treatment drug?
There was a treatment blood, for the blood disorder, yes.
And did she receive that drug from you?
Not from me, only it was administered by a doctor.
Okay.
This is crazy.
To your knowledge, did she continue to have these issues as an adult?
Yes.
And what, if any, precautions did she have to take as an adult?
Well, she always had to be cautious and not take any contact sports, anything that would prolong any kind of injury, internal or excessive bleeding would cause a problem.
When she was pregnant and due to give birth to Valerie, were you present with her?
Yes.
When decisions were made
Judge,
about?
I'm sorry, I'm going to object as to the medical care aspect of this because I think we're getting into medical care.
I don't know if we are or not. I'll overrule it at this point.
When she was preparing for her delivery,
yes,
were there any precautions that she took for that event?
Yes, she had to take medication.
And again, you were present during the delivery, is that correct?
I was in the hospital at the time, yes.
But you weren't
All right.
there.
Judge, I don't believe I have any other questions.
Sure.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Cross-examination?
Wow.
One more.
Sure, yes, sir.
Brendan weighs in, gives his attorney a little advice. Let's see what questions they go with. The state closes their case with the victim was a hemophiliac. And they use her dad to bring that in.
Good afternoon, Mr. Benson. Christine, as an adult.
Can you speak up a little bit more? I can't hear you.
Thank you. Christine, as an adult, would play kickball and volleyball, correct?
To my knowledge, she did play sports.
Okay.
Non-contact sports, yeah.
Did she take Any precautions like wearing helmets or anything like that, like when she was younger? In those
When she
sports?
was younger, she did. I don't know what she did as an adult when she didn't live with us.
Okay, so you weren't certain of her as an adult. How long had it been since she'd lived with you?
When she graduated college, she moved out on her own.
Okay, and so probably 15 years?
Thereabouts.
Okay, and during that time, were you aware of her like competing in obstacle course type things called a mud run?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Did you ever hear about it?
I'm not familiar with it, no.
Okay, it's kind of like a obstacle course where you're jumping over fences and.
Judge, counsel's testifying objection.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
So you haven't heard about her doing any of those sorts of things, correct?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Here, one moment.
Sure.
I like the connection you're forming. It's unlikely that she would, knowing her condition, say, let's do some knife play.
All right, no further questions. Redirect.
Just one redirect.
If she knows that it could kill her.
Mr. Benson, you were able to testify that precautions were taken at the time of Valerie's birth. Was Mr. Banfield present at Valerie's birth?
Yes, he was in the room with her.
How is that redirect?
How is that redirect? All right, I'll
withdrawn.
sustain the objection.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
No, thank you.
All right, Mr. Benson, you can have a seat in the courtroom. Thank you, Mr. Benson. All right, next witness for the Commonwealth.
Judge, Commonwealth would rest at this time.
They
All right,
rest.
the
That's
Commonwealth
their
rests.
finish.
Without asking Mr. if I can take that back for just a second.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
Sorry.
We rest, then we take it back. We might call another witness.
Judge, Commonwealth rest.
All right, the Commonwealth rests. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a few housekeeping matters I have to take care of with the attorneys at this point, and that, based on the water issue, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go ahead
What's the
and
water
go
issue?
home a little early today, okay? So please do not look at any of the media, do not discuss the case with anybody, don't do any outside research, and
Are
we'll
the
see you early
toilets
morning,
not
okay?
flushing?
We'll continue on with the defendant's case, okay? Thank you.
I did not see a lot of evidence that I thought I'd see in this case.
All right, yes, sir, your motion?
Yes, thank you.
It's a judgment of acquittal. It won't work.
Your Honor, this comes on our motion to strike. You currently have before you a 5-count indictment that was returned on September 16th, 2024. The makeup of the indictment was designed to cover a whole series of circumstances. The 5th count was use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. In addition, there were 2 additional indictments relating to child abuse and child neglect that were then sought through direct indictment again in December. I'm moving to strike all of those charges. What we have up to this point in terms of evidence, Judge, we haven't heard a single word from a single detective that was involved in the homicide division. We haven't heard any sort of credible evidence relating to what was espoused as a theory of catfishing for years now and had been working toward that. In fact, you have the only person that has even suggested anything, and this is probably the 3rd or 4th time that story has changed, is Juliana Perez Magalhaes. She's now testifying to what appears to be intended to fit right into whatever the Commonwealth's theory was regarding that, but doesn't even make it that far. She can't answer any questions with any sort of detail. In fact, without the absolute direct and oftentimes leading questions related to the Commonwealth, she wasn't able to answer a single thing. We went through in painstaking detail the numerous messages that at one point she might have said something about, but now she doesn't remember. In fact, I'm not sure her testimony is worthy of consideration, because she got to the point when I would ask questions, she would say, if you keep asking questions like that, I'm just going to tell you I don't know. And that happened numerous times, despite the fact that we patiently went through the evidence that we needed to go through in order to test and challenge her story. That story doesn't amount to, even in the light most favorable of the Commonwealth, something that's sufficient in order for these charges to go ahead. The charges themselves are an interesting, and I'll paraphrase essentially what needs to be shown, is that my client killed Joe Ryan after killing Christine Banfield. And the alternative, my client killed Christine Banfield after killing Joe Ryan. Then the next set of charges, which at least scream out that they're just a catch-all, is that my client killed Joe Ryan and within 3 years killed Christine Banfield. My client killed Christine Banfield and within 3 years killed Joe Ryan. We don't have any sense of what happened on that day, even in the light most favorable of the Commonwealth. There's no indication of who was killed and then who else was killed. There's no evidence to support that even in the light most favorable of the Commonwealth, under that statutory or that indictment scheme that was presented by the Commonwealth's office. As to catfishing, there's no indication, and there's certainly no evidence that would be credible toward that. And the Commonwealth committed during my motion for bill of particulars in September that was the theory that they were going on. Obviously, that doesn't appear the case because there's just not sufficient evidence. So we move on then to the evidence of Ms. Graff and the testimony. She tried desperately to paint a picture. Crime scene reconstruction, though it may be available all around the world, is not available in Virginia. And one of the reasons why this testimony has probably not met where the Commonwealth needs it to meet is that there's no indication as to timing. And those 4 indictments are all about timing. And so this isn't something that, hey, if they get close with their evidence, this is about in the light most favorable of the Commonwealth, they have to have a prima facie evidence as to each individual indictment. And the way it currently sits now with no timing evidence, with no actual confirmational evidence, first regarding that whether or not Christine Banfield, which is the threshold that they have to have shown at this point, is that she somehow abandoned her devices and this scheme came into place, which we've heard about for a year from various motions and various pleadings. And so this is the time when you're in a situation where you have not heard from a single homicide detective, though there were at least 12 in place at the time. You haven't heard a single thing from any of the command staff about this investigation. You haven't heard anything from the people that were doing this investigation except for Detective Leach. And Detective Leach has a specific purpose in this, and this is to introduce the items of evidence that he took photos of and the items of evidence that he sent away to the lab. There's nothing in any of the lab analysis that's been said that would implicate my client. And in fact, in listening to all of the evidence, it appears the testimony, the identification of any blood, if it was even done, would show that Joe Ryan and Christine Banfield are the contributors. This, Judge, is not surprising given the horrific situation that was there, but it was a situation not of my client's making and was not something that he did. And so, Your Honor, I don't believe there's sufficient evidence, even in the light most favorable of the Commonwealth. And I believe that there's an obligation when you have someone who has changed their story so many times on the part of the prosecuting authority to take that into consideration. But let alone those issues which will be taken up, I guess, at a later time. We have these indictments, and those indictments are the indictments that they chose to seek. They're the indictments that they had to work toward in order to be able to present the prima facie case, or in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth. Your Honor, I'd respectfully suggest that they've missed their target. There's not sufficient evidence, and I'd ask that you strike the five count indictment and even less evidence regarding what was indicted later on, which are the child-related charges. And thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am?
Who's going to talk to this one?
If there is anything specifically the court would ask the Commonwealth to address. If not, I would simply point to the court that in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth, the evidence has been presented that Mr. Banfield shot and killed Joseph Ryan, that he stabbed his wife Christine, that all of that was done while his 4-year-old child was left in the basement, unattended, in a home where weapons were not only present but were in use, that the event in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth was in fact staged by the defendant in conjunction with the assistance of his nanny, and that at this point, I believe the evidence is sufficient to meet the standard before the court.
All right, thank you. Anything further, your motion, Mr. Carroll?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. And the factors of this case, just for the record, there's two different numbered indictments. The indictment 2024-666 are the indictments with the 4 counts of aggravated murder and a use of a firearm. As far as the 4 counts of aggravated murder, 2 of the counts are under Virginia Code 18.231 subsection 7, and 2 of the counts are under 18.231 subsection 8. As to the evidence in this case, in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth, I do find that there is evidence that can be considered by the jury for each of the elements of aggravated murder as they are outlined in the indictments count 1, count 2, count 3, and count 4 of 2024-666. That's based on the co-defendant's testimony, crime scene testimony, blood evidence testimony, and DNA evidence testimony at this time. For those 4 counts, and as shown in Virginia, the Commonwealth can indict a defendant under subsection 7 and subsection 8 for the same murders when each of them constitute murders occurred as part of the same act or transaction, or in a 3-year period. So they don't have to choose at this point during the guilt or not guilty phase as to those 4 indictments. As to count 5, the firearm, there is evidence to go forward that the defendant did use a firearm in the commission of these acts. As far as indictments under 2024-873, count 1, child endangerment, and count 2, child abuse. In these matters in Virginia, it has been found that you can put children in situations that would constitute child endangerment and child abuse. In this case, we have evidence from the co-defendant's testimony that the child was brought into the house, brought into a crime scene. And the light most favorable to the Commonwealth would be that she was there during the occurrence of the events that had happened to her mother and to Joseph Ryan. And therefore, there is evidence for child endangerment and child abuse. And it is clear in the Virginia law that you can go under both the child endangerment and child abuse, and it's not double jeopardy because each statute requires proof of additional facts not found in the other. So that's 2 distinctive offenses. So based on that, and as far as the co-defendant's testimony, I cannot find as a matter of law that her testimony was incredible. The weight of the evidence is up to the fact finder, so I'll deny your motions at this time, okay?
Told you it wouldn't
so
work.
We'll go forward tomorrow. Has anybody been discussing jury instructions with each other, or?
I don't think with each other, Judge, we have ours prepared, and we can certainly exchange.
All right, if we could exchange those at some point in the next 24 hours and maybe talk about them And if we'll see where tomorrow goes. You have at least 3 witnesses, correct?
I have,
Could you just use the microphone? I'm sorry. I have trouble sometimes hearing you.
I'll have a couple witnesses available beyond 3, so maybe 4 or 5.
4 or 5
I
for
also
tomorrow.
have evidence to introduce, Judge.
Okay.
And so and this is good that we're talking about this, is I wanted to, at some point, when it's appropriate, to introduce the first 70 exhibits.
Okay, and you have them in electronic format,
given it
just
to- I've given
one
it to
file
you.
each? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay,
And so, but I also will want, because they didn't see it as we were going through it, I want to be able to introduce them, have a reasonable period for which they can read their sheets,
well, if there's not objections, I assume.
Yeah, well, I guess as we go through objection, but
We're
that's
gonna
what
have to
my
go through
thought is,
objections.
which could take up some time.
So would you rather do that first before your first witness?
I'm thinking that.
Well, is there any objection first to him doing that before his first witness, going through all his evidence?
No. No.
And then we'll just go one at a time, and if you have objections, we can cover them at that point. Is that okay?
Yes.
I mean, if you can get with it, if you agree upon some that are not objectionable, that's fine.
Yeah, if council could provide them to us.
Yeah, could
that
you
would be helpful.
provide, I think I have, and let's just make sure for the record, for defense, I have, let's see, I have 1 through, oh, gosh, 1 through 71, and that's all the letters and jail mail, 1 through 71. So if you can get those to the Commonwealth, and then I have 80, 80A, 80B, 80C, 80D, as in Delta, and then 81. That's what I have for the defense. So if you can get those to the Commonwealth tonight so they can review them, and then they can tell me tomorrow morning which ones they have objections to as we go through them, that would make it faster anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can we do that?
Yes.
All right, and you
Is
can.
this the au pair's
and so
jail mail?
You'll go through tomorrow and possibly the next day as well, correct? With your
Yes.
evidence?
Yeah, I do believe so, and
Okay.
possibly into the next week.
And into next week, okay. I just want to make
Whoa.
sure I get it straight, but yeah, if you could start working on jury instructions, though, I'd appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
Just a question for Mr. Carroll, if he knows the time that we might receive those files.
As soon as I go back.
Okay.
As soon as we go back.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
They don't like each other.
Judge, the only, thinking through the exchange
Yes.
of jury instructions.
Okay.
Certain instructions will be relevant based on what Mr. Carroll
I
presents.
understand, and if you, I
And
mean,
to
we
this
might have
point-
to add to the stack at some point, but if you
Okay.
could maybe just get the bulk of the ones we know are going to be.
Don't play with
Yeah,
the
we certainly
dongles.
have the charging instructions
Okay.
and all of the standard Commonwealth
Are they going to be
instructions.
waterfall? I mean, it's.
Yeah, I believe so,
Okay,
Judge.
so, yeah, so you got to get all those so we
Ma'am,
can
put
get
the
that taken
dongle
care
down.
of. And maybe start thinking about a verdict form too, because it's going to be rather lengthy.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, anything you have, Mr. Carroll?
No.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, as they go to break for the day, we are also going to be done for the day. They do have a defense. Defense will put on a case, and it will involve multiple witnesses at least tomorrow and possibly the next day and maybe the next day after that. So we'll see what they have. They have a lot of evidence, 70 pieces of evidence, jail mail and phone calls. That sounds spicy. Usually jail mail and phone calls has some good stuff in it. But why does this court start so late? Oh, not Friday. They don't do anything on Friday. So we only have 2 days today for the defense to be done. So nothing happening on Friday, which is good because then Friday we can Friday and Saturday we can catch up with the other trial. There we go. Can we watch the New Jersey trial for an hour? No, we can't. My head can't handle the shift back and forth and back and forth. It's a little too much. He said possibly going into next week. What that means, right now it's Tuesday. Tomorrow's hump day. Be here early. You'll hear me do the hump day yell. If you haven't heard that before, be glad. So tomorrow's Wednesday. We'll have 1 day of defense. And he says, and then into the next day, that's Thursday. And then he said, and possibly even into next week. Because they don't have court on Friday, that would be Monday. So we're all going to be stuck inside this weekend. Might as well. Yeah, as long as I have power, I'm okay with doing another Saturday stream. How many e-bikes did he sell? None. So, well, I think 2 of the people that have called me on the phone and asked me about e-bikes have bought them. They just didn't buy them from me. So they asked about where they should buy. They asked about shipping. They asked about a lot of things. Oh, man. E-bike business. Never thought I'd be in the e-bike business. Ivan, I just got this. I'm pulling it up as we speak. Sent a pic of son's buck via bow hunting. Obviously, I won't show that on the channel, but that looks like a whitetail if I've ever seen one, and not a small one either. If you lose power, you can generate through pedaling bikes. I could use the generator, which I have out on my front porch still from last time I had to run the generator. All right. I was supposed to recap this. I was supposed to recap this for Yankee. Was that Yankee still here? Do you still want the recap? It goes like this. The Brandon Banfield case, I've got some notes here. Brandon Banfield case involves a high-profile double murder. It's in the Reston, Virginia area. Happened February 25th of 2023. It's been a lot of issues that caused this delay to get to where we are now. But here we are. It's aggravated murder. The deaths of his wife, Christine Banfield. She was an ICU nurse, age 37, and a stranger, Joseph Ryan, who was age 38. He was not a nurse, but he was found on a website where adults can find other adults who are into whatever things they're into, if you catch my drift, and consensually agree to do what they want to do. Life in prison is the maximum penalty. There's no death penalty in Virginia on this one. The 4-year-old who's mentioned today was home during the incident when this happened. The prosecutors say there was an au pair that, well, we know there was an au pair, but the prosecutors say that Brendan developed a relationship with his au pair, and that during that he decided that he was done with his wife, wanted to have a relationship with the au pair. Divorce didn't work because that would it would be messy, first of all, and then they'd be fighting over custody. He didn't want to share custody with his wife, of his daughter, and so he allegedly developed this plan to eliminate his wife, and did it using this whole website, where a fetish website where they can make arrangements to have somebody come over, and it will look like something that it wasn't. It would look like it was non-consensual, but in fact it was consensual, is what he wanted to do. Well, the state says that he made all the arrangements without his wife knowing anything about it, using his wife's computer to communicate and do all these things, so it would look like she had set this up. Then when the man arrived to do the deed, the au pair watched for him, said, "Yep, he's here." Brendan, who was waiting at a nearby McDonald's, rushed home, grabbed his service weapon, a Glock. I think it was a Glock 43 or something like that, and went inside and ended up shooting the man in the head, which didn't kill him, allegedly, if we believe the story. He then proceeded to stab his wife to death, and the au pair, using the Glock that Brandon had given her, shot the man who, as he was, moving or coming at them, as he was stabbing his wife. There was a 911 call placed early in that occurrence, probably right after the first shooting occurred, and then there was a hang-up. 911 called back, nothing happened. Like 20 minutes later, another 911 call is placed and saying, "Hey, there's been an emergency," and all this has happened. The crime scene, according to police, showed signs that things had changed a little bit, had been manipulated or moved. Blood might have been spread around intentionally after the fact, and the police really didn't know what to make of it if it weren't for the fact that the au pair, who was arrested a couple days after this started and in jail for about a year, decided to turn and tell all to the police, become state's witness, and testified against Brendan in this trial. And that happened early on in this case. So that's the basics of it. Now, tomorrow, we're going to start getting into some of the spicy, interesting stuff. We heard the defense say, you didn't hear from any of the investigators on this case. 0 investigators provided witness. Why is that? Because there were investigators that thought one thing about the case, and they were removed from the case. There was a bunch of politics or personal opinion. There's a bunch of spice. There was division going on. And we're going to hear about that, it sounds like. Greeners, thank you very much for the kind words. Let's see. How come defense has jail mail and Pross wasn't on the ball to get ahead for the jail mail? Defense has jail mail, I believe, of the star witness, the au pair. She has, according to the defense, changed her story multiple times. And if they can show that she's changed her story multiple times and is not trustworthy, then a lot of what the prosecution got from her, which is basically everything that happened in the order that happened and who did what, when, and how, is under a big question mark. So I think defense is going to focus, just like they did in their open, on the au pair, almost exclusively. The au pair and the investigation, if they can get there, if they can get to the investigation. Let's see. RA is so low in volume for me. Usually has such good sound. Have you tried turning it up on your end? I am a little low. Look at this. Hang on. Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Is that better? That's now we can do our ASMR stream. You guys were all waiting for this. Hello, everybody. We're going to talk about true crime today. No, we're not doing that. Sorry, that is just too loud. I was a tiny bit. I was about 4 decibels low is what I was showing. So hopefully that's still all right there. All right. I need fingernails for that, right? You have to have fingernails. I don't know. I don't know the rules of ASMR. All right. Anything else? Anything else? I think that's all. I think that's how we're going to leave it today. We're going to start again tomorrow. The court starts at 10 o'clock. We're going to be here about 9:30 and 9:45 as usual. And Amber, or Josh, says, here's the outro. Play the music, roll the tape, bring the curtain. Tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love, smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better, and please stay safe till we go live again. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to go to the store and prepare for the storm. I'm looking for milk, bread, eggs. What else do I need, Josh? Water. I would say diapers, but we don't have anyone in diapers. Yet. I count my lucky stars. And probably spare tires for e-bikes. That's what I think. That's what I think we need. We're gonna go live again tomorrow morning, 9:45. We'll get the water. We'll get the bread. We'll get the milk. Toilet paper. Yes, don't forget. That's the one thing you remember after you've forgotten, and then it's too late. Batteries. We'll charge all the batteries. We'll fill up the 6 gas tanks, and I need to make a phone call to one particular manufacturer of e-bikes and get my personal information off their website as a dealer for their product, which I am not, nor have I ever agreed to that. So I've got a busy night tonight. You guys have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
I'm going to sustain my own objection.
I was kick back, taking it easy. You don't put a diplomatic plate on a hooch.
I'm not going to argue about semantics here.